While our world is hurting and humanity is desperate to find home, Carlos Whitaker leads us in conversations that bring us just that.
From fun discussions about everyday joy to polarizing and challenging topics, Carlos shows even the most callous heart that there is still hope in humanity.
Join us in listening to the brand new podcast, Human Hope, every Thursday.
For more details on Carlos Whitaker, follow him on Instagram at LosWhit or visit carloswhitaker.com.
And don't forget to listen to his podcast, Human Hope, new episodes weekly on Thursday. Okay, folks, welcome to Dadville. This is a fun episode, most likely.
Well, let's not promise something that...
That's fair. This is an episode.
It's just an episode.
It's just, at this point, it's just an episode.
Yeah.
It could go a lot of ways.
You just laughed, though, so it's kind of fun.
Everything's fun to me.
There we go.
Hashtag Enneagram 7. I do want to say... This is kind of a Q&A episode. John and I are just chatting.
Yeah.
We don't have a specialist in the room. There's no one who knows what they're talking about between the both of us. Nearby. Within the vicinity. Maybe in the neighborhood, but they're not in this room.
Can I say it's been so long since we've been in the same room.
It feels free, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Like we've been doing all these interviews online, like Squadcast. And
shout out to Squadcast.
When's the last time that we were in the same room? Doing
just the ads.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Just recording those
that's
ads.
True.
But here we are, Johnny.
But with the ads, we're reading. Did you just, something?
Did that butt start about 3 octaves higher?
But I'm nervous.
You had a little puberty flashback there.
I'm nervous.
Gosh. So one thing I want to just come off the top rope talking about, because I just watched a movie that I found out later that Jon, that you have loved for a long time. It has been in your stratosphere.
It's rare that someone texts me, hey, have you heard of this thing? And I'm like, I've not only heard of that thing, I've done a podcast where we only talked about that thing. I did a pod. I wish I could remember the name of this podcast, but I did a movie podcast where we talked about this movie that you just watched the other day called, I feel like you should say it since you brought it up.
So it's called About Time. About Time. It's hard to say when you have the double T's. About Time.
Canadian version.
It's got the 2 T's in a row, so it sounds like either about time or about. I don't know where I was going with that. It's just that. But it's called About Time. It was really great. Let me put an asterisk here. It is rated R. I was nervous while I was watching it because I thought it was going to have some naughty bits. And I will say this, I do not condone some of the I think the reason I figured out that there is a moment of a picture of a woman without her shirt on because they're at an art gallery, and I think that's probably technically why they had to make it R. There are no naughty bits seen other than that. You know, it was a movie made in 2013, so it's got some things I don't condone, some sexual decisions. But that said, you're not going to see...
It was 2013, though.
It was a crazy year. So I just want to make this clear. I'm not saying go watch this movie and then you guys come back and get mad because you're like, I can't believe you condone that behavior. There's a lot of behavior in that movie. There's a lot of behavior in movies in general that I love that I don't condone. But I will say this. You're not going to see like some intense moments or anything. That's not happening. I think the R rating was because literally they're just in this art gallery and there's a picture of a woman and that's the thing. There are some moments that aren't great, but again, we're moving through that.
You are really selling this movie.
People are so excited. I'm trying to avoid the texts that are like, I thought you was a Christian man. It is maybe one of the most profound. So it's got Rachel McAdams. Do you know the other guy's name that's in it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at him right now. Dom Hall Gleason. I don't know how to say that
name.
Yeah,
so you'll recognize him. I think you'll recognize him. He was actually in the latest Star Wars movies as a bad guy. So for those geeks like me, you may spot
and it
him.
has Bill Nighy. Is that how you say it?
We're killing the name. This is what cultured guys sound
This is going to be a fun episode.
A really fun episode. But this is why I'm talking about this movie. I got done with this movie and legitimately walked upstairs and stood in each of my kids' rooms to watch them as they sleep for about 10 minutes each, and that is not a lie. This movie had such a profound effect on me. It rattled me to the absolute core. I got done watching it, and Annie and I just let the credits roll because we were just so like moved by sort of the profundity. And it's kind of a bait and switch movie because you think it's this rom-com, which it is, but it's really so much about family and like being present and treasuring moments and how you live and sort of decide to think about the days you've lived. And I don't want to give anything away because I
know. I want to talk about the specifics so bad.
Yeah.
So Amy and I watched this movie. Probably it was before we moved to Nashville, so it must have been right when it came out. But we didn't know what it was. We just took a chance on a random movie one night, and it was so good. When after it was done, I was like, we need to watch this movie every 6 months and encourage the whole world to watch it.
Yeah,
it's so good.
So that's what we're starting with. Is if you have a chance to watch it, again, not for the kids don't need to be in the room. There's some F-bombs scattered about. Which maybe that's why it's R too. But anyway, it's really, really profound. I think if you can make it through some of the stuff, you'll be very happy you did because it's got really, really great. It makes me think, and it really will challenge you and get you grateful.
Anytime I go see a movie, I always leave, for the most part, with something. Yeah. Like when I was a kid, I'd go see like Mighty Ducks, and I'm like, okay, my focus is hockey from now on. I need to find a team in Central Indiana. I wanted to be a
duck for all my life, but now I want to be a mighty one.
A mighty.
Yes.
Like you always leave with something. Like you go watch some, like Gladiator or something, and you're like, okay, I need to get in more fights in front of crowds. I'm not fighting enough.
Was that your takeaway? The movies for me growing up that were like that were Rad and Gleaming the Cube, which may be a little too old for you. Yeah, one was a movie, it was a skateboard movie. A Gleaming the Cube, it had Christian Slater and it was a star, but Tony Hawk. But it was this really perfectly done movie because it actually had a storyline. Like the kid is trying to sort of avenge his brother's death, but it's also skateboarding, which who doesn't see those being simpatico?
Of course, yeah.
And then Rad is this movie about a dirt bike guy and he does tricks and it's it was like everything that a little 9-year-old kid was like, right, this gets me into skateboarding and that gets me into bikes. Those were sort of the gateway drug movies for me of like walking out very motivated.
Like you walk out and you're like, I got to rethink everything. But this one is like you're done and it's actually helpful.
Yes,
it's a great movie and you walk out and you're like, I feel more present in every moment. Like you go up and you just watch your kids sleeping,
Yeah, it's. I wish that we could, and maybe we'll do like a follow-up. Maybe the next time we'll talk about the movie a little bit because
we'll give people time to watch it.
Yeah, we'll give people time to watch it.
Yeah.
That's on the next one. So what we're doing with this Q&A is we just basically asked you guys like, hey, let's have a fun little episode where we just take some questions and we answer them. And you guys delivered in some really impressive and I'll be honest with you, overwhelming ways. So we're going to try to do our best to get through the ones that we feel like we can add some thoughts to. And John, I felt like you had a good one we could start with.
Okay. Best, quote, don't tell your mother moment, unquote.
Best.
And did they tell their mothers?
And did they tell their mothers?
First off, I really try not to do that at all.
Yeah.
Because we try to not do any secrets. No secrets. They don't have, like sometimes when Luca and Livy are like, they want to have a little like secret, like they're pretending and they're outside building some kind of like dragon fort or something like that.
Wow.
Fine.
It's very aggressive.
Which actually happens a lot these days.
Okay.
But like in general, this is a disappointing answer because I don't know that I have like a really good like, don't tell your mom. I just don't like that.
Yeah, I agree. Remember that commercial? There was a commercial that ran a couple years ago where like the dad, the whole hook of the commercial was "Don't tell your mom." It was like it was a dad and his 2 kids or 3 kids. Don't tell your mom, and it was cute and it was
right.
But I remember being really troubled by it. I was like, I don't like that. That's sort of getting perpetuated out in culture. Like, hey, it's.
Well, I don't think I would have liked it when I was a kid, if my dad did that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is just between us.
Yeah. Now that said, I don't do that, but what I will do is I will find that the rules get a lot more flexible when it's just me and the kids. Like things that Annie is like kind of like, I just don't do this with them. And so it's not a hard and fast rule. It's not a, we don't do this. It's a, I just found that that's not a great idea a lot of times. I'm like, well, slushies at 4:00 for you may not work, but in this moment, I feel like they're going to work for me. So we go to Sonic and then I pay that price tenfold,
right?
Because the sugar hits their bloodstream and they're like little coke addicts at 6:15 p.m. when I'm trying to get them bathed. So my version of that is more that it's more like the rules just get a little bendy. And I'll tell Annie. It's not like I'm coming home going,
right.
But, if she's like, you have the kids for a few hours, I'm much more like, yeah, I think that plays now.
Right.
Yeah,
and I tend to be, which this was surprising to both Amy and I tend to be more like rigid. Like if the girls want to get away with something, I don't know that they come to me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like it's because I know less just in general. And so I'm a little more like tight when like if they come and they're like, hey, can we have these gummies? I'm like, I don't know what you've had so far today. I just came in from the studio. I'm going to say no just to be safe. So I feel like when I do want to do something fun, Amy's like, whatever, do whatever you want.
Yeah,
okay.
I love that. The rules. Yep. Okay, T-Bird Camp asks this question. I like this. Who is your favorite sitcom dad and why? And this is a very time-appropriate question. We are slightly obsessed with this cartoon, Bluey, that we've talked about.
Yep.
That's an Australian cartoon. Hi there, Bluey. I've thought about getting a tattoo of the dad on my body because I like him so much.
Where would you get it if you got it?
I think, I don't know. I'd honestly probably like somewhere people couldn't see because I'd be like, I'm glad I got it, but I'm sure this is going to, in a year, I'm going to be like, why did I do this?
Just something just for you.
Just for me.
You can see
just
it.
A little. Because he is a good reminder. If you guys get a chance, especially parents out there with younger kids, because John's and mine are all 9 and under. It's such a great show.
Just the little accent
is already.
Already I'm in.
Yep. But he's really funny and very true to form for, I think, a lot of dads, like the struggle. But he's also very sweet and plays. But you see the struggle he has of like, I finally sit down to read the newspaper, and the two girls who are kind of the stars of the show come in like, hey, Dad, we want to play. And he's like, oh, all right. But then he loves playing. So there's a real struggle. But it is a genius show. I didn't realize that it's so widely, I feel like Caillou is like Caillou.
Oh, yeah, Caillou.
Is sort of widely hated. This was like something I didn't realize. Like I mentioned to a couple other parents, like, oh yeah, you should get online and just type that in. And there's so much hate for that show.
From parents?
Oh, hate it. Yes, hate it. And it's the opposite with Bluey. Like I tweeted something the other day where I was like, hot take, Bluey's the best show on TV. And people were like, yeah, that's actually wildly cold take because I think everybody agrees. And all of a sudden, all these people started commenting about how much they love the dad. One of our really dear friends, Matt Lehman, sent me a ranked.
Oh, that's right.
He found the ranked best Bluey episodes. Uh-huh. So he would probably be, I think he's up there. And what is his name? His name is, I can't remember what his name is.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I will say the first dad that comes to my mind is Tim Allen, Home Improvement. He's not that's not my answer, but I'm just saying that's the first one that comes.
The first thing, yeah.
I'm gonna go with Phil Dunphy, Modern Family.
Oh,
you familiar with Modern? Do you guys watch that?
Oh, yeah.
I love that character.
Yeah,
I would Phil or what's his? I'm blanking on his name right now. But we would love to have you on Dadville.
Phil, if you're just out there,
Phil,
listening.
But we want Phil Dunphy. We don't want that actual Ty Burrell.
We
don't want Ty Burrell. We want
only
Phil Dunphy
in character.
Yeah,
Phil, hot Phil.
And just to be clear, we would actually take Ty Burrell. We would. You could do any characters you like.
Right,
okay. This is from Mr. Jim Jr. I have a daughter and a son. Period. Does this mean I'm a dad? That's a good question. And this gets into like science and biology.
Physiology, yeah.
Physicality.
Yep. Spirituality.
Sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
My answer, I'll give my answer and then you can kind of give your take. Yes.
Yeah. I would say I was going with
maybe. We need more information, but
yeah.
My hunch is yes.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe, but your confidence makes me want to say yes too.
Okay.
Though I don't know why, but you seem very... So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to follow that energy.
I'll just say need more info.
That's a good one. Okay, so this is what you and I have laughed a lot about. I'm already laughing before we've even answered this. Tabulated Organizing Co. says, how do dads get that dad bod? I want to just...
Wait, what was the name? Tabulated
Organizing Co. She looks like a very sweet woman. She's smiling. She's got a sweet little yellow sweater on, holding what looks like a beer, but I'm sure it's like I haven't zoomed in. I'm sure it's like protein powder or something.
Sure. Yeah.
You did that again. Still nervous. You're doing great.
I don't know what's happening right now.
I just really encourage you to say you're doing great. Here's my theory on dad bods. I think the way you can define a dad bod is it's in the state of in between. So it's not, to me, huge and, like rotund. It's also not in shape. It's a perfect in between. So what you never know about a dad bod is he coming, as he lost weight and he's on his way to health?
Is he progressing?
Is he getting better? Is he getting more ripped and shredded? Or is this the way down? Have I caught him, where he used to be in great shape and we're just sort of, we're sort of getting looser and a little flabbier on the way to the other. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, that it's my favorite thing to be at the beach, and because you just really, I no offense, John, I don't know that you even get to answer this because you're in such good shape and you're jacked and everything, so it's a little frustrating. But I get a lot of joy when I go to the beach and I see the plethora of men who've agreed this is as far as I'm going to take this. Because I feel like
because no one just sprung this trip. Like, it's not like your wife just sprung this on you. You knew this was on the calendar. you had time. You had time to, set some goals, prepare.
I talked to a friend of mine last night. We were having dinner with some friends, sweet Brian Bolton. And Brian was like, yeah, we're going to Disney World in a couple weeks. And we're like, we're like cutting out all this stuff, which I got a little joy from, because I was like, Disney World is an interesting place to decide you want to suddenly look good. But I also I just loved that he was actually being intentional. To your point, he was like, no, I gotta tuck this in. And he's in great shape, but he was like, I gotta get there. I gotta get there. But you're right. But I think that's that's the 1-2 punch for me. It's like, one, none of this is being sprung on you. This beach trip has probably been booked for months at this point. But two, that all of us dads get to a point where we're like, I just can't go any further.
Well, part of the equation is, which I came to this, years ago, thankfully. No, and I know you and I talked about this when we were on vacation a couple of years ago, because we were talking about dad bods. And I'm like, look, the bottom line is, if you look amazing, or if you look terrible, or if you... No one cares.
No, thank you.
No one cares.
Can you say that for the dads out there?
I'll say it for everyone.
Yeah.
For the moms, for the dads, for the daughters, for the sons. Here's the thing. Nobody cares. You could look amazing. And even like, like you're saying, like we go on vacation and, everyone's noticing everyone. But that's as far as it gets. Like, you notice people. I'll see a guy who's like, he's got what I want. I'm like, man, he's 6'2". Just look at that six pack. He looks great. He's got whatever you think you don't have. But then it's done.
Yeah.
That's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go up and give him a, $20 bill or something.
And if he is betrothed, if he is with wife, then that decision is for two people in his life. And probably really just one.
It's really just one. He's telling himself it's for two people. It's really just for one.
He doesn't care.
Which, side note, can we talk about, Amy and I had this conversation a few months ago about, we were getting into like guys and girls. And guys are visual and girls and like what the physical attraction. I was basically like, are you attracted to me? Like, I'm trying here. Is it all lost on you? And she was like, I appreciate, like, when let's just keep it general. She's like, when, a really in shape guy takes his shirt off at the beach or whatever, I'm like, oh, well, that guy's really in shape. And like, he looks like his muscles feel tight or whatever. And like, I'm appreciating it, And I feel the same way about you. When you take your shirt off, I'm like, oh, you're looking good. I appreciate it. And I'm like, everything you just said is exactly how I feel when a really in shape guy takes his shirt off at the beach. What's the difference between you and me? I don't get it.
That is genius. Holy cow, that's genius. It's so true. I mean, I think that guy is like, I'm taking this shirt off and behold beach. And the same exact response is happening both men and women. Like, wow, he's in great shape. Okay, honey, could you grab me that Coca-Cola?
Did we bring the sandwiches? No one cares.
Nobody cares. He cares. I know the groundhog technically saw his shadow, Johnny, but let me tell you what. It's about that time of year to start spring cleaning. Yeah.
I'll take more winter over organizing and going through junk any day.
Not me. But, it's important to do every year. Almost as important as taking care of what you put on your family's dinner table.
Right. But how am I supposed to do that if I'm busy cleaning?
The Double B, Butcher Box. Each month, they send a box of the highest quality meat right to your door and at a better price than the grocery store. Butcher Box helps you make mealtime moments feel special year-round.
Now you're speaking my language, Dave.
Yeah, language of love too, John. Butcher Box will change your life. Their curated box takes all of the stress out of long grocery lists and difficult decisions. Just let the experts choose their large stock of fresh, high-quality meat for you.
There's nothing I love more than enjoying a delicious meal with Amy and the kids. But sometimes we just don't have time to plan and search for the best ingredients,
You're always so busy doing push-ups, and so many push-ups, John, at that. Not only does Butcher Box have an incredible selection of delectable meat, they even have an extensive cache of recipes on their website. Anything you can think of, from perfect grilled pork chops to candied Cajun bacon.
Man, now I'm hungry.
You and me both. You never have to worry about funky, unhealthy additives. Butcher Box's meats are free of antibiotics and added hormones.
But will it feed my entire family? They're monsters.
They're beautiful monsters. Absolutely. Each box has approximately 10 pounds of meat.
Wow.
That'll make around 24 individual meals, which means if you don't eat them that night, you can use them for a workout.
Okay, but how does it stay fresh on the way to my front door?
I'm so glad you asked. It's packed fresh, shipped frozen, and vacuum sealed so it stays that way. You can choose the no-brainer curated method, or you can build your own box. Either way, you get exactly what you want. Deliciosness.
Delicious. Right now, Butcher Box is offering a very special deal.
Tell me more.
New members will receive ground beef for life.
Are those the best 4 words you've ever said? Ground beef for life.
Yeah. That's 2 pounds of ground beef in every order for the life of your subscription.
Just visit butcherbox.com/Dadville to get your box today. That's butcherbox.com/Dadville. Get your meat on. So here's another question. There's sort of a simpatico of questions here. So I'm going to just ask this one because it seems to be what everybody's asking. Shout out to Shelly Monk, Trent, living their life. Why do most dads, and that's got asterisks, got to be careful with that word, on both sides of most, dads seem to be way more in touch with their chill, meaning less likely to sweat the small stuff? And this is a very consistent question. There's literally 5 of these before I got to hers. Hers was kind of the most concise. I think my take on that, and this is, again, no one pays me to hear my thoughts on things like this. Maybe they do. Do they? No, they don't.
I mean, I'm not going to pay you for that.
That's fair.
Is that what you're hinting at?
I kept looking at you. I think it is that the moms are traditionally the engine of the fam. They're the ones that have to do like I've got a low tire light on, I've got oil change time, and obviously this is a metaphor. So I think I will say that this is my take, and John, then tag your it. I think what you probably miss, the chill you may experience from a dad toward the family is not going to be how he feels about the work or other things that are a little more probably traditionally in the dad's purview, if you will.
Right,
so
right.
You may feel like, he's not as stressed about, the fact that our son isn't sleeping as well, or the grades have kind of fluctuated a little bit with our daughter. He cares, but boy, you want to hear him get stressed, sit him down and go, hey, tell me how work is doing and you feel about our 401k right now.
Right,
and you're going to see a man transform into I would imagine a lot of times a little more of a...
Speaking generally.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely true for us. I mean, I would say my wife is more in tune. Maybe this is... I'm tempted to say that it's less so now as they get older, as it was when they were like babies. But I don't even know if that's true. She is more in tune with what is happening in their little hearts. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. I think I'm just like 1 degree more removed from whatever is happening with them. Like if Luca is stressed about some kid at school, or if Livy is, writing backwards all the time. Are we stressed about this? I don't know. I feel like we're both in there. We're both involved, but she will carry it past the conversation that we have.
Yeah.
I think more often.
Yeah.
Because I think I think Amy and maybe more generally moms, they just have that direct line emotionally.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know that I and maybe more generally dads have that. It's something that if we're super involved and intentional, I can kind of get there.
Yeah.
But it's not, I'm not hostage to it for better or for worse.
One of the real challenging, but I think beautiful things a dad gets to do a lot of times for a family is he gets to be the one that is sort of everybody looks at and goes, how are we doing? How's the collective body of this family doing? And I think if he goes, we're good. Everybody's kind of like, no matter what's going on, I think there is a little more of a breath on like, okay, up there, hey, at the front of the ship. And he's like, yeah, we're good. Like little triple things here, some rocky water, but I think we're good. I think everybody goes, okay, we're good. And so I think there's a real blessing to the way men work that we don't take on quite as much water because I think there's a wonderful simplicity sometimes to the way that we can think about things that can be really frustrating, but I think can be very beneficial I think we have a responsibility to sort of say, how are we collective? How's the whole thing doing? Like, is everybody okay? Is this thing headed in the right direction? Or I think moms, again, are the ones that are much more on the emotional levels, checking with everybody on the ship. But the dad's a little more like, hey, Mom, are you okay? Do I need to come check on things? I'm there. I'm paying attention. I'm helping. But I'm also thinking about, is this ship got holes in it? Because, if the whole thing is going down, that's of much more concern. You know what I mean?
Right.
If that makes sense. So I think there is a beauty to sometimes what can feel like, why are dads not quite as into the minutia? And I think it's because there's a little... we're just not quite as built to do that. But I think there's also a global thing we're thinking about sometimes. It's not... that sort of encompasses all of it.
Right. And is that innate, or is it because of what I was saying about how like we just don't have that direct line emotionally that pulls us into the weeds of it? Then we're like, well, how can I be useful? I'll be the global guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know either.
Okay. This is from Rupert. I don't know. What advice do you have for a new dad? My daughter is 6 months old now, for how he and his wife can settle back into the romantic side of their relationship
you are asking
with a new
guys.
little human in the mix.
Oof.
And we got to reply to this. Yes, please answer this one. I can already hear them laughing trying to get through this.
People don't know how clued in we are to the romantic side of things.
Man,
I feel like
this is the rest of the episode right here.
Buckle up, folks.
Here's what you need to do: go to the store and get. You know what I'm going to say?
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Let's say it on three. One, two, three.
An
Some
application
friends together, and so you don't have to deal with the question. Sorry. What did you say?
An application.
Oh yeah, to the store.
Just as a backup.
Look, you never.
That'll
know.
take the stress off of you because you have multiple revenue streams.
How does this have to do anything with romance?
Okay, true answer. First thing that comes to my mind is I would say don't, because when you have kids, I mean, you meaning this person, Arupe, you know so much, and you are in the weeds of it, having a 6-month-old daughter. You are so in the weeds of it. So I would say, I don't know, maybe first off, like, let's not try to get back up to the mountaintop. This is maybe not the time.
So much.
2, I would say, do the little things that you know your wife or husband likes. I feel like this is a time where it gets into like real nuts and bolts and logistics. Like for me right now with kids, I know Amy doesn't like it when the like trash thing is full. The trash and the recycling, she doesn't like that. Now I hate taking the trash out. I always did it as a kid. Tuesday mornings, I always had to take the trash out for the trash. I don't like taking the trash out, but I will do it. And every time I do it, I'm like, I am such a hero. But we'll get back to that. But I know this is the thing that I'm doing that in a little way is like, you might say this is not romantic at all, but it is romantic because it is a thing that I know Amy likes. That is like, if we're getting down to it, if we want to be romantic at 10 p.m., then at 10 a.m.
Would you define romantic?
Well, that's going to be kind of your thing. I'm going to pass the ball off to you, and then you can kind of deal with the nuts and bolts of that.
Time to get romantic.
I take the trash out. I pay attention. You just got to do all those little things that used to maybe not take up so much effort because you had all the time in the world, and of course you were going to go to a movie and then to dinner, but now you don't have time for that. There's so much noise going on with kids that you have to like intentionally carve out the time for those tiny little things.
That's it.
That's
That's the word.
And also
to me.
buy a lot of flowers and gifts.
Yeah. And for her too.
Right. That's actually a great idea.
Yeah.
Buy them for her too.
Well, that's where I thought you were going with the Walgreens thing. I feel like you nailed that. I think intentionality. This is the thing, and it gets a little broader than romance, I think, is that kids, in my opinion, if there's one thing I've learned about that side of things, and romance could mean everything from like romance to adoration, kindness, affection, hand holding. You know what I mean? Just like kind of,
and when you get into marriage and then when you have kids, you really start to realize what is stereotypically kind of said as like, we all know that romance for women is a little more like all encompassing, less so for guys. I feel like as you get into marriage and kids, you realize, no, it's the same for all of us. It just shows itself in
different ways. I do think the intentional thing is a big piece of it. I think it just suddenly you've got so much more going on, as you said so well, just logistically. Time is not yours anymore, and then the time that is means a lot of different things for both people in the relationship. For one, it can be now I finally get to relax and not think. I can think about myself for a minute, and then it can get tricky because what each person wants in those moments can be very different. Totally. So I do think intentionality, John. That's a great answer, John. I think the nuts and bolts of like, what are the things that matter to me? Here's what I need, from you, what I need from life, what I need from kids, whatever.
Which right now might not be romance.
Yeah, exactly.
Like at the end of the day,
that's right.
Your wife, husband, whatever, might not want, like the most romantic thing might not involve anything physical at all.
Yeah. Oh, you meant physical. Oh, shoot. We should
totally different answer.
Let's start over. And I will say this too. I will say this, and I think I would imagine this is true for some people, maybe a lot of people, women namely. I think that one of the tricks of a husband's job is that it's almost like when you get married, that you're on such a similar page because there's just not a lot to think about. You've got each other.
Right.
If you're both working, you've got work to think about, and you got your friends. And it actually speaks to the last question we answered, I think. When you start having kids, a dude, a guy, a dad has now kids to think about too. But you just nailed this on the last question, John. Like I would say, but it's not quite as connected as the mom is to that. So I think a dad, to the question of why can they be more chill, I think it's because while we are wildly connected to our children and we love them and it's like my mom deeply love them. My mom says this all the time. No one will ever love you like your mother does. And I think there's a lot of truth to that because I think that is a spiritual, physical, emotional thing. I believe that. I think, and that can get really weird and it can get bad and hard. And that's not always a truth because moms can be bad moms and all those things. But I think generally that's really true. So I think what can happen is a guy can keep the same expectations because while our life has changed, it kind of hasn't. We've just got more stuff to take care of.
Yeah.
There's not a deep emotional supernatural bond a mom has.
Right.
So while you're going, okay, we've had these kids, but hey, like time to get romantic.
Yeah.
You know, you're winking across
The kids
rooms.
are asleep.
Yeah. Her brain has suddenly almost been chopped up into however many kids you got now. So
Right.
her soul is not, it almost feels like it's not her own. She is now
Right.
taken on more people into herself that she is thinking about. So it's not as simple as, what happened? We used to be able to have some dinner and get some music and dance. And then, you know, it's like, yeah, I know we used to. But do you know what I'm thinking about right now? You know, Charlotte's got her play tomorrow, and I can't remember if she knows the lines or not. You know, there's just more. She is constantly.
And then the dad's like, who's Charlotte?
First of all, who is Charlotte? And where have you been for the last 6 months? I didn't even knew you knew French. But I think, you know, so I do think it gets tricky because I've come to realize with Annie, she has taken on a world of new things into her heart and life and soul. And I have too, but it's very different. And so
Right.
I think to your point, there's an intentionality that's absolutely paramount to go to look at her and say, here is where I am. Here are the things I need. And for her to look at me and say, here's where I am and here's the things I need. And here's what the beauty of a marriage is. Here's how we do it.
Right.
Here's where we connect.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's not fair to come in with the same expectations you had pre-kids for how romance is going to look and be, because I
Right.
think it just changes, and it gets a lot better in some ways. It gets a lot harder in some ways, but it's just not the same.
Right.
You know,
It's not the same.
we should have just said that and left it. It's not the same.
It's never going to be the same ever again. Next question. This is from Gina Villa.
Genovina.
What's the thing you dread most that you will have to explain to your kids one day?
Oh, Jenna, going right for the heart of it.
I think I probably won't have to explain it because they'll slowly realize it, and that's how little I know.
Mm.
You know, it's not like there's one particular thing that I'm really dreading. I mean, you know, man, it's not even. Typically, I feel like that would be like the birds and the bees talk, but I don't think about that so much. But not that I'm not going to have that talk, but I think of it less as like a singular talk, as more of like a thing that we're teaching them over a long period of time. But I think like
you just had a conversation with your dad about that last week.
I did, which is why I kind of want to start that ball rolling with the girls soon before I forget, because it was mind blowing. You know.
Could you imagine your dad driving to Nashville from Indiana
with some props?
And he's like, okay, this is our 16th talk on this, and there's some really good intel I've gotten.
And the next workbook is going to be a little bit bigger than the other ones, but just stick with it. I think is like death and the fact that we're not, which they already ask questions about that kind of stuff. Like they're in the process of realizing like, we don't know if we're going to live through tomorrow. I mean, like that's not a sentence I actually say word for word, but like Luca especially will ask about things. And I of course want to say like, you're totally fine. You're going to be like, there is no tornado. No tornado's ever going to come through again. The tornado, huge tornado came through Nashville about a year ago, almost exactly. And that has really rattled her. Like she asks about a tornado every single night.
Wow.
And the truth is, I don't know, you know, like a tornado could come tonight. I don't know. But I deal with, or I struggle with like, how much of that do I kind of let her in on? Where it's like, sure. I'm going to do everything I can possibly do to protect you as long as I'm on this earth. Yeah. But I'm not in control of everything, and I don't, you know, one day I'm going to die, you know. Yeah. So far.
The data we have now. Right. I think mine's a little weirder. I think something that I've learned a lot from counseling from my own life with my relationship with my dad, which is thankfully good, is that there's just a point, I think even on Dadville, we've talked about this with numerous of our like expert guests. There's a point I think you hope you get to where your kids come to you and they go, hey, there's some stuff that wasn't great or isn't great.
Right.
And that's usually, you know, when they're a little older. And I think that can be.
You mean like stuff that you didn't do great?
That I didn't do well.
Right.
Thanks for clarifying that. And so I think those conversations probably happen a few times. I don't think that's a one-time thing. And I think the differentiation of that, you know, where your kid's really pulling away and going like, I'm my own human and I'm still a part of you, but I'm a different thing. And that means I'm starting to actually think about what you told me about some things or think about how you acted and treated me or whatever. I'm not looking forward to those. I want to do them. And I think they will be really incredible and hopefully beneficial for everybody involved. But I'm not looking forward to like hearing, you know, my kids look at me and say like, man, you really botched this one thing.
Right.
Or
right.
like you said this to me one time and I don't even know that you knew you said it. And I've thought about it, you know,
yeah.
a lot.
And it had a
since
huge
then.
impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a conversation that I think, again, needs to happen. But I'm definitely like, boy, that's just going to be tough. It's going to be really hard.
Well, and you and I have talked about this a lot. I feel like I always want to be like ahead of it. I just don't want to be blindsided by it.
Yeah.
And I have to tell myself it's going to be the thing that I swore I did well.
Killing. Yeah.
You know, because I know that I'm not perfect
Yeah.
for sure. And I know I go to bed at night, you know, half the time and I'm like, I just could have been better today. I could have been more present. I could have been less irritated or whatever. But it's going to be the thing that, like, you know, the current version of it would be like, you just never jumped on the trampoline with us. And I'm going to be like, what? No, you could have said anything else, but I know I did that. You know?
Well, not to take this answer too long because, you know, we've got some more good ones here. But I do think one of the trickiest things about that I've learned from watching it from my own life and friends' lives, as we've talked about relationships with their parents too, is it's amazing what you take away from a moment and what your kid will take away from a moment.
Right.
And how they remember things, how you remember things, how you misremember things, how they misremember things. And so I think a lot of the struggle too of those conversations is you can have data that absolutely disproves their point. You can say, I either have video, I talk to your mother, she remembers everything, she will tell you, I did say that, I did do that. But at some point it's not about that.
Totally.
And so then you've got to delineate between going, hey, honey, my sweet daughter, no, daddy did that. And her going, oh, great, this is just making it worse. Or you going, okay, that was your experience. And it may have been the wrong way to experience it because it wasn't the truth, but it still was what you took away. So
for some reason, they walked away with this experience.
That's right. And so it's not just as simple as going, wow, you're about to nail me to the wall on something I did wrong. It's that they could actually be wrong. And you have to navigate what to do when they've remembered something incorrectly, but it affected them in a certain way.
Right.
Know? That's what I'm like.
Yeah.
I've been trying to spy, but the binoculars only can see so much. What projects do you have going on over there?
Yeah, it's funny how you walk over to our yard and stand in our yard with the binoculars.
It's too close, isn't it?
It's a little close.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you know, after all the snow in Nashville, all I can think about is getting my yard ready for spring.
So much snow, which was like 2 days of it, basically. Mm-hmm. Any excuse to get outside once the temperature is above 60 degrees, even if it means doing yard work, all right?
Have you heard of Sunday Lawn products? I am so excited to try them out. They use customized lawn plants and formulas without unwanted chemicals.
Yeah, get out of here. I'm always looking for non-toxic alternatives for my family and the planet.
That's kind of your thing. You know, the real kicker for me is the Sunday Smart Lawn Plan. Your order will include a free lawn analysis that includes soil-specific details like fertility, saturation, and micro and macro nutrients.
You got the mic and the Mac. You sound like a soil and lawn scientist, my man.
I do. Sunday Lawn Care makes it easy to be an expert, Dave.
Yeah.
For years, you know this. You've watched me struggle
From
trying
your
to get
front
the
lawn.
perfect lawn.
Oh, yeah.
There are too many fertilizers, weed killers, and they only make things worse.
I've told you that for years, if not months. I've spent way too much time and money on a better yard, Johnny, and that's what you've watched me struggle through. Could the grass really be greener on the other side with Sunday?
Listen, I wouldn't lead you astray, Dave.
Thank you.
Just go to getsunday.com, enter your home address, and let their free lawn analysis tool take care of the rest. All right? Sunday uses soil and climate data to create a unique, tailored nutrient plan for your lawn.
Oh, how do I use the formula on my grass? Is it labor intensive? So many questions. You know I'm not good with this stuff, John.
Well, all you have to do is attach the ready-to-use pouch to a garden hose and spray.
That's actually something I'm really good at.
You're really good at that.
Yeah.
In less than 15 minutes, you'll be on your way to a beautiful new lawn in no time. No time being 15 minutes, of course.
Right.
Let Sunday take the guesswork out of growing a greener, more beautiful lawn this spring.
Visit getsunday.com/Dadville to get $20 off your custom lawn plan at checkout. That's $20 off your custom plan at getsunday.com/Dadville. Make it green, y'all.
Okay. Are there any traits, behaviors that you don't want to pass on to your kids and actively try to be aware of in yourself?
How
Good
much
Lord.
time do you have?
Oh, man.
We each get 3.
Okay. Oh, man. I feel like my first one that comes to my mind is I feel like I'm not super patient. So whenever I see my kids, which this isn't, kids don't have a lot of patience anyway. So this one is already distorted. But whenever we get in some sort of back and forth where they're just not being patient, I can feel like, oh, that's me. I gave them that. That's my impatience coming through. Moodiness, like for those who are into Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 4. And so there's the moodiness, and there's also the sort of like, woe is me, I don't belong. I'm not, like I'm a square peg in a round hole of the world kind of thing.
The world is round.
The world is round and I'm square. That's a big one. It's complicated because I see that in, I'm just going to say one of my kids because I don't want to too early on start naming things.
Right.
But I definitely see that in one of our girls, and it's complicated because I know all the struggle that comes with that, so I feel bad. But there's also that's the water I swim in. So I'm like,
right.
Oh, I know that water.
Right, for sure.
And there's some great stuff that can come with that. So it's a double-edged sword. And then to end on a light one, and I'm naming 3 of about 97, FYI. I have a massive sweet tooth. You know this.
Oh, yeah. It's one of my favorite things about it. Because I just watch a man unable to do what he wants to do.
Unable, unwilling.
Fully resigned.
Every angle is just, no. I'm eating the rest of this cake. I'm going to eat it in tiny little bits.
I feel like we need to do an episode just to talk about you and your sweet tooth, and especially the what do you call them? The cakes you love,
the Kringles.
The Kringles, man.
If you guys
not
don't
Pringles,
know not
very
Pringles,
different.
No
Kringles.
Kringles. It's like this, like
it's the cake. And no offense to you, everybody goes, "Who eats this?" And then John McLaughlin is who eats it.
I'm there. Like my car just pulled up. You just mentioned
In fact,
I'm there.
I think Amy said Annie and I video from last Christmas. And it was a video of like her secretly recording. You're in there with your knife cutting, and it's like a little sliver, and you're just and she's just like recording it 10 feet away.
Because the thing is like somebody on Twitter tweeted this a while ago. I forget who it was, but the tweet was, "Oh no, I cut that cake slightly at a weird angle. I guess I'll have to eat the rest." I mean, because you just tell yourself, "Oh, I'm just gonna square that up a little bit."
Oh my
gosh,
gosh,
a little bit. Oh man,
good gracious!
But I see that in I'll just say one of my kids, 100%.
Yeah, it's
I remember when I was a kid at like sleepovers, and we would like have a snack, and then we'd go back and play video games or basketball or whatever. And I was the kid that was like, "But there are more snacks in there.
You guys forgot.
Why did we walk out of the room with all the snacks?"
You know what God's gift to you though is, and this is a kindness from Him to you, is that He gave you the metabolism of like a mother cheetah, and so you could eat that stuff. I can smell that, and He's like, "Are you okay?" Like I have like my neck has gained 5 pounds right under my chin from just watching you eat it. I have like osmotic weight gain. It's amazing. I can just be around it. Gosh, 3 things. Okay, I'm gonna try to think of these quickly. I think.
I'm sorry, I took on too much time.
You just gave me so much. I'm thinking about that video again. It's making me laugh. Okay, I think my inability to be still in my head. I mean, I think I can sit and be still, but I think it's a real struggle for me to not try to go somewhere in my brain or, that's one of the things about social media that's tricky for me is it's just like I get to check out. And I do think that's a really bad trait. I wish I was better at being still and being where I was,
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. I think my appetite for just everything can be tricky, just always wanting. I mean, that's a very 7 thing. That's a sort of gluttonous part of the Enneagram 7. But, that speaks again to my inability to be still. It's just like always this, I got to have stuff. Give me things to keep me entertained and interested.
Yeah, your capacity to I mean, we're together most days, so I kind of feel like I know your schedule and the amount of books that you'll reference and oh, did you see that article?
Oh, it's just
I'm like, how do you have
mass consumption? Yeah,
to consume all this stuff.
Yeah, that's the consumer in me, and I don't mean that on just a physically. I mean just like the way my brain wants to sort of take everything in to keep it sort of interested. And all.
But
these
then I'm
things...
like, but did you eat that entire Kringle last night? Because I did. While you were wasting your time reading that New York Times article, I was working on that Kringle.
I was working on a Kringle. One of the things I actually really relate to, I think, with the Enneagram 4 is I have a really dangerous idealistic streak that gets me in a lot of trouble. Sort of like things could be better, and I want to get the best of, and really joie de vivre, like that. We can do it. The romantic part of me, that sort of 4 thing of things could be so this way. That gets me in a lot of trouble in my marriage because I can sort of always, be like, but we can do this better. We can make it. It can be shinier or more blue or more green, And Annie's like, oh, my God, I just wish you'd take the trash out. I'm like, yes, but there's a way to take. Will you kiss me on the way out? Annie has been a great, and I've really, this sounds like I'm being sarcastic, but I mean it. She's been a wonderful thing for me because she is so unbelievably good at being like, isn't even this hard stuff great? Isn't our marriage is wonderful even when it's hard? And that's hard for me to get into. And I think I would love for them not to have to be like that,
Yeah. The thing that Amy and I laugh about that I do all the time is if I'm on tour, if I can remember what that's like to be out on tour and playing shows. If I had
you guys listening can remember what it's like to be in.
You guys remember, just do a quick Google search. You'll see some. But if I had a day off where I was like, I'm going to fly home for this day, or just the day that I get back, I will so hype up that day.
Oh, yeah.
I will so romanticize.
Yes.
It hasn't even happened.
Yes.
And I mean, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be sunny, but perfect, not too hot. I'm going to walk inside. The house is going to be super clean, and somehow there's a new addition in the back that we didn't have to pay for, and then the girls run to me and bring me the gifts that they made. I just so romanticize that stuff.
Okay, so we've obviously had a lot of fun. This is what
it turned out to be a fun episode.
It turned out to be. Thank you. I called it. I prophesied it. Named it and claimed it. I think this next few minutes should be the lightning round.
Yeah.
I think this should be where we don't have more than a minute to answer these questions.
Okay.
So we're just going to buckle up, folks, because this is going to get interesting. And you can't sue us for what we say, and you can't cancel us for what we say. Okay.
Okay. Here we go.
Let's go.
Right off the top. Favorite dad jokes.
Favorite dad jokes. Anything that's punny, which is basically dad jokes,
that's
right?
basically dad jokes.
Yes.
I remember when I was maybe early high school or something, we were in the car. It was me, my parents, and then a friend of mine. And my dad, we were in Indiana. And Indiana is what the caricaturized version of Indiana is, which is just all cornfields.
Yeah.
I don't get defensive about it because it is.
It is what it is.
And we were driving down the road, and there's tons of corn on either side of us. And my dad said, just out of the blue, my dad's like, I think that corn is stalking us.
Oh, wow.
And my mom and I didn't even react because that's just, we're used to that.
Incredible.
And my friend Matt just died laughing. It was his favorite joke.
He's my new son.
Yeah.
Welcome to the family.
Okay. This is a two-parter, this one. First part, how many belts should a dad own, and should they all fit?
Ooh. I'm going to go conveyor, fan.
Oh. See, you're thinking outside the box there.
Bible.
Rust?
The rust belt. I have a...
How many belts do you have?
I have a black and I have... Well, I have... Okay,
yellow too.
I got to... Yes. I actually have more than I think I do. I need a black, I need a brown, and those are my everydays. That's like, depending on the shoes, and I'm trying to be. Right. But then I have sort of like the church versions. So then I have like a little nicer black and a little nicer brown. Oh. I don't get into cloth belts. That's always fascinating and amazing. Like I ordered some Scotch and soda jeans or pants, like kind of chinos, and they came with a cloth belt, and I was like, you've put pressure on me that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah.
I kind of keep it to black and browns though.
Yeah. I have one belt.
I don't feel like I've ever seen you wear a belt.
I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
I never wear a belt.
You don't need to.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Okay, second part. Also, we just had our second kid. How long until I become fat? I don't know. These questions are too good.
I will tell you, I'll give you some practical advice, which is not where this question should go. But I remember my doctor telling me right after we had Ben, he looked at me in the eyes and he said, listen to me. This is how you're going to get fat. It's not going to be because you eat a bunch of ice cream at night. It's not going to be because you indulge in Oreos. It's going to be because you finish your kids' plates.
Yes.
And that's the beginning of the end.
That's a real thing.
And that is a real struggle for me.
Yeah.
Like when my kids and Annie's cook some amazing meal, or we've gotten pizza. We do Friday night as pizza movie nights like y'all. And we always order pizza. That night is, you want to watch me try to face the gauntlet of temptation. Like, forget about anything I could watch on TV. Forget about what it is. Right. Friday nights when Annie is like, okay, got some Papa John's or some Jets pizza. And I'm like, oh, you got to be strong, Dave. And I'll even let myself eat one or two. It's not like I'm not eating it. But then, my little 4-year-old Sam will have a half-eaten piece. Xana will have 2. She barely touched. And I'm like, then the fiscal responsible part of me, Dave.
Yeah, you don't want to waste this.
Don't eat. Don't forget the. Oh, you know what moms want to know what dads are thinking about? Finish pizza. You're over there stressed about if little Susie's doing okay in school. I'm thinking, should I eat this pizza? It's a 2-biter. I can knock this thing out. Problem.
You know what that reminds me of is there was a Dave always does the like time hop thing.
Yeah.
Is that an app?
Yeah, it's an app.
So Dave will always text Amy and I and Annie these awesome pictures from like 3 years ago, Livy's birthday or whatever. And there was one, I think it was Luca's birthday, like 4 years ago or whatever. And it's a bunch of us like around the table, and Luca's getting ready to blow the candle out, but the front door is open. And I texted you back like, everyone else is like in the moment. The only thing I'm thinking of is like the front door's open. Somebody needs to close the front door. The front door's open. We're letting the cold air in.
Amy's so present. She said, "Look at our beautiful daughter." You're like, God,
I'm like, this is the worst time. But we need to. Can someone close the front door? I can feel. Okay, the AC the heat just kicked on. Okay,
that is so true. It's so true.
Okay. So when did you first realize you had dad strength? It hasn't come yet.
I was going to
say. That's a quick
that's
answer right
really
there.
Really easy one for me. I don't have it.
As a dad, when can you get away with not shaving?
Ooh, that's a job question to me. You and I aren't really. We can't answer.
Well,
that.
Where my brain immediately went was it's easier now, but when they were babies, I was shaving like to the skin, which I never do, like with an actual razor.
Yeah.
Because my like scruff, I would like give them little kisses and they would start crying.
Yeah.
So
maybe
and now it still happens. Yeah. But at least it's not because of the scruff.
I would say maybe a good judgment is what I call the George Michael facial hair. Gotta have faith, George Michael. Mm-hmm. That's a really precarious moment because you get the kind of, oh, cool, I got some scruff to where it starts to turn in like, oh, you're attempting a beard and it doesn't look good.
Right.
That's a decision you got to make.
Yeah. And it's tough. You need to set boundaries beforehand because once you get into that phase, you can't
You're not making
judge. I've done it a million times where I'm like, no, it's still fine. I think it looks cool, and I might go a little bit longer. And then you'll send me a time hop video or picture from like next year or whatever, and I'm like, why did I do that? Why didn't I shave before that birthday party? I look like an idiot.
Yeah, you never look like an idiot.
Do your kids like your music? Or do they think it's lame because it's you?
I love that.
I will say my kids, they don't think it's lame, but they don't so far. They're just not that interested. I mean, Luca and Livy each have a song, and they like their own songs. But even that, it's like they're kind of over it.
Okay,
they don't want to like listen to it.
I have to be careful with this answer because I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I'm going to be really succinct. That's a lie. My kids, for some reason, are obsessed with my music, and I think some of it is because Annie played it a lot for them driving around. Like, and there's a sort of like paternal thing going on, like a familial paternal dad does this and we're kind of proud of him thing, which is really sweet.
Yeah.
But Ben, every single day that we get in the car, this is one thing I love, and this is what I could really sort of riff on for a long time because it means so much to me. And I love being in Nashville. I could talk about that. I could talk about how cool it is we do music and how cool that is for kids to see that. That's kind of where all my thoughts go. But the succinct version is every morning we get in the car, and I'm not lying, and almost every time we get in the car when when it's me and the kids, Ben, especially my oldest who's 9, will say, "Daddy, play some of your songs." But what he means is not old songs. He's like, play stuff that you're writing right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he'll want to hear like, "Hey, did you write anything this week?" And I'll be like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Play it." And so it's really cool because he really, and it means the world to me. He will try to learn it. I'll watch him in the back seat and he'll be like listening to it and okay. And then the second time he'll know a little bit of it. He'll sing along. So it's funny because mine are interesting and I don't know what that is. Part of me gets terrified because it's something I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like shaming them into loving my music. It is funny because Ben especially, he really spearheads that. Will be like, "Hey, play some of your music," and it's always new stuff. It's always like something I've just demoed that I'm sort of figuring out.
So does he ever give feedback?
No. You know, it's funny talking to who were we talking to that was giving the feedback?
John Foreman.
John Foreman, yeah. On Dadville.
And his daughter's the same age.
I just said
We've got a podcast called Dadville. It'd be great if you guys could check us out. DadvillePodcast.com.
Happened in my brain. What meta thing just happened in my brain that I was like, I need to reference something. Oh my gosh, y'all pray for me. Just pray for me. So John talked about, his daughter's super critical, who's the same age as Ben. So that was an interesting moment of that interview for me because I was like, oh, Ben is nothing like that.
I love that though.
He will say like, you can tell which songs he likes more.
Right.
But he's not like critical about it.
Yeah. What movie do you love watching with your kids? I'm a sucker for Disney.
Yeah.
Like old Disney. I kind of want to watch like an older classic Disney movie with my kids. Yeah. And it can kind of be any of them. Like to me, there's like anything in the 1900s. That's weird to say, but like, yeah, like Beauty and the Beast or something like that. Yeah. Which currently,
it's okay.
What is happening?
Are you still nervous?
The only thing, I would be embarrassed, but I'm hopeful that I'm going to grow a little bit.
It could be your body warning you.
So I'm okay. I'll let my voice crack all day if I get an extra quarter in.
Everybody's like, "Hey, John, just buckle up, bro. We're about to sprout."
Currently, my daughters are not into that.
Yeah,
they feel like that's.
Yeah,
we used to watch that. We're big girls.
Can I tell you what's a weird sidebar to that? My kids are weird about how it looks. Like, I'm not kidding. Ben, especially. Ben's a very particular little dude, but he'll be like, "Daddy, it looks old."
Oh,
like it looks.
They want like the Pixar looking.
Yeah. They want like the animated CGI thing.
Yeah.
I really like. We talked about Bluey. I love watching Bluey with them. Friday nights are tricky for me in a good way because I really want to watch the movie with them. Like, I want to sit, and yes, there's some like, dad, good things happening where I want them to be like, "Oh, Dad's hanging with us," and they know it. They'll be like, "Dad, sit down, like watch the movies," which I do 90% of the time. But then they get into like shows I don't like. So I'm always I will look for movies with them. We'll scroll, and I'll be like, "Nah," because they may be like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "I don't want to watch that." So it's a tricky thing trying to sort of land something that everybody. And that means, obviously sometimes I'm not watching them because I can only watch Trolls World Tour so many times from like, oh my gosh.
Dude, we listen to that soundtrack so much.
It's incredible.
And I actually...
there's worse soundtracks.
I'm not complaining.
Okay, and so we've landed now at the last question of the Q&A round. John has not been prepped, so he has to answer this right off the top of his head, and this is a child who grew up swimming, so he has some... what is the Monahan design says, what is the appropriate amount of yelling that should happen from the sideline of your kid's sporting event?
Oh man.
I would say question. Right off the top of my head, enough to show the parents that you're invested and involved and you have some knowledge, but not enough that gives away that you actually don't.
Right. Well, and also you got to factor in how often can you make it to the games or the matches. Because if you miss the last 2, you need to yell a lot.
You got to make up.
You got to make up for lost time. And then especially if you know you're going to be out of town for the next week, you're going to miss the next one.
You got to yell for those.
You need to be on the field at one point.
You might sub in as the dad.
Bring a jersey and get in the mix.
I will tell you, it has been one of the most hysterical. Annie has laughed so hard at me because Ben, our oldest 9, loves to play soccer. He's pretty good at soccer.
He's good.
He's great at soccer. I didn't know it existed in me what has manifested at these games, what has come out of my mouth, and how I have, not yelling at him, just excitement.
Right.
I get so into it. And so I've just been so surprised at how involved I've gotten, how vocal I am. And I've had to be very, very cognizant. And the guys that are the dads on the team, because it's been the same team basically for the last 3 or 4 years. So all the dads who I already knew anyway, but we have to be very conscious that we yell for the other team too. Because it's an indoor league we're in right now because it's February or March. But the goalies for the other team sometimes, because they switch, will be right in front of us. Yeah. And we're very dude, good grab. And you always say, okay. But we have to be really careful. Nice. It's not just kill them. Right. Right. It's a weird discipline.
Yeah. Like you said, I grew up swimming. So if your kids are swimmers, it doesn't mean you can yell all you want or not. You can't hear you. So just FYI, if you're yelling and your kid is a swimmer,
and maybe
stop.
Maybe it's a great way to wrap up this Q&A episode because we may just be doing a lot of yelling and information that our kids don't hear.
Just in general. Let's not confine this to sports. Their heads don't have to be underwater for them to not hear you.
Oh my God. All you wonderful, beautiful, kind people. Thank you so much for listening to the episode.
If you have a second, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and write a review.
Unless it's bad.
Because that stuff really does matter.
And please follow us on socials. You can find us everywhere at Dadville Podcast.
Also, you can follow us each at Dave Barnes Music and at John McLaughlin to find out more about our music.
Thanks for listening.